WWCD. What would Coleman do? Now, who's Coleman? Now, if you're in the sports psychology field, you probably heard his name before, Coleman Griffith. Now, if you haven't heard his name, this is considered the grandfather of what we call now sports psychology. Now, I like talking about him a lot, not because he's a founding father or he's a big part of why this industry even started. I like talking about because he had a multidisciplinary approach to sport and performance psychology. And I think that his way has been lost and we have gotten quite far from what he was trying to do. Now, I asked, what would he do for you to think when you're doing your practice, when you're doing your different skill sets, when you're working with the population, does this reflect what Coleman would do? I would argue a lot of it doesn't. A lot of people either veer towards more the clinical route because they are a clinician, so obviously going to work on that side, or they're more on the counseling side or giving more of like psychoeducation. Some people are more on the cognitive performance, which is all important, every last aspect. But what about the team building? People talk about that, the personality side. People talk about the actual coaching education to be able to implement skills to performers to do what they need to do. But the thing about Coleman is he thought all of that was very important. Now, he may have been a little bit ahead of his time. This was the 1920s. People didn't really care about reaction time, decision making, team cohesion, personality. It's more so how do you perform on the field, the court, or the track, and what could be done to make that better. And obviously, the more tangible things like physical training or sport specific training took precedent. Now, I think what the issue is nowadays is we didn't necessarily just forget about Coleman's teachings, that we got kind of one-sided. I even seen a post as of late that talked about how does the clinical side of mental performance and the more practical applied side of mental performance come together. And I made my own comments about the topic, but I think none of that even matters. Both sides have a marketing problem. They're not appealing as much as they need to be. And that's why I want to talk about this, because when it comes down to what do we do, most people couldn't tell you. And within the industry, there's going to be people who have different names for their titles: cognitive performance specialist, master resilience trainer, mental performance coach, mental performance consultant, neuro trainer, performance coach, peak performance coach. I could really keep going if I wanted to, kind of like Bubba did with Forrest Gump with shrimps. But that being said, who cares? All in all, the end goal should be, what are we doing for the clients? And I think everyone means well and everyone's trying to do their best. So I don't doubt that. But why are we giving such a cookie cutter, one-sided approach to something that's so much diverse? Mental performance is not a one size fits all, let alone a one way to do something. There's different aspects of it. So when we dance around, whether it's clinical or non-clinical, performance versus cognitive, cognitive versus mental skills versus psychoeducation, it really gets convoluted to the point where we're just saying words. I practice with my company, Mind Body One, the way of how do I serve my client? Now, obviously, we still stay within our scope of practice and still have ethical boundaries. We're not going to do something that we're not supposed to do. But I think we kind of limit what a practitioner can do. And I know there's powers that be and accrediting bodies that I don't personally follow myself, but I know they are the leaders and they are the provisioners of this industry for the most part until someone else comes and does it. But I think there's a more diverse way of looking at this where we all can give different skill sets, but we first got to learn them. So ask yourself this: what's your knowledge based on strength conditioning? We're going to work with athletes, right? But how many of you are actually capable of doing the movements or the things that your clients are going to do? A lot of us want to work athletes, but they don't even understand the terminology for the given sport. I've seen people don't even know the concepts of the very sport that their mental coach is in, but they're simply appointed to these programs, and that's a problem. Now, I'm not saying you have to be an expert at the sport, but I guarantee you it goes a lot further when you understand what it takes to be in that sport versus just regurgitating some mental skills babble that they probably don't even already care about. So also on that note, what is your knowledge based on personality theories? Not just talking about like the big five factor, or some people go like the Myers-Briggs. No, understanding the concept of how it applies to performance. And when people do something, what behaviors or traits are needed to excel at a high level. Now, I personally love personality theories. My mentor was a researcher in personality. He actually works for one of the largest personality assessment companies in the world, Hogan's Assessments. And we put out a study together on mental toughness and how personality can actually be a predicting factor through that. So these are ways that you're able to combine the practicality with also the theory, but a lot of people defer between the two versus just putting them together. And that's what, once again, we do here. Also, the cognitive performance, this probably takes the biggest back seat. And Coleman Griffith was actually big on implementing these types of tasks, but we don't really do them, or we see them as, oh, what's the studies show, or what can we prove? What are the outcomes? I always talk about the outcome shouldn't matter. It's more the how of what are the implications of what they're doing when they do the task. Use that as a tool to showcase the subjective things from an objective standpoint versus just seeing it as a pass or fail or end all be all. So this was supposed to be a quick episode where I want to just cover a topic that was on my mind. I usually come up with these topics a few days before. Sometimes I change them the day of because I see something on LinkedIn. I'll be honest, LinkedIn has a big factor on how I make these episodes because I want it always to be about what you guys want. Because I'll be honest, I thought about canceling this because a lot of people were giving me great feedback, but then a lot of people weren't. And as I'm human, it made me deterred a little bit. But I'm going to stand with it because I know there is a lot of people that get a lot of value from these episodes. And while I don't know everything, I've been through a lot in this industry specifically. So I guarantee there's some things I can give you insight on. So make sure you check out and get some insight. So I'll keep going. And as always, guys, this is my pathology.